Welcome to episode 12 of the Give Us Time podcast, the podcast that highlights the extraordinary members of our armed forces and their families. This episode, we have a really inspirational guest. She is the founder of Milspo Network, which is over 900 military spouses, partners, and other half members who are connected, networking, and building successful businesses. She started off doing her own podcast series called The Independent Spouse, a series of amazing weekly podcasts which explores the world of running a business by chatting to our inspiring military entrepreneurs. We are honoured to welcome Jess Sands onto the podcast. So Jess, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, hello, Alex. That was such a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's all right. It's all right. So the first question, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? Where did you grow up?
Of course. Gosh. So I am, like you said, Jess. And I think the reason that I'm here and the reason that I started the podcast series is because I am a wife of a C-130 Hercules pilot. So that's my connection to the military. But I grew up in lovely Cheltenham, what feels like a lifetime ago. Gosh, it is actually a lifetime ago. Very much away from the military world. Didn't really know much about it. And now I found myself married and very, very much in the military lifestyle.
So you've just gone and said there, so your connection to the military is through your now husband. So you didn't have any military background at all then? So you didn't have... Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing then. Oh,
No, none at all.
So what was it like then for you growing up?
It was good. So it was a very sort of normal childhood. My dad went to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, came home at 5:30. I went to the local school, and generally life was good. It was a proper 90s childhood where everything was kind of safe and there were long, hot summers. And it was all about Spice Girls and just living a good life. I have good memories of it. So very different to the military world I find myself in now. I think my grandpa was probably the only person. He was in the Air Force, but that was World War II. And so everybody was doing military service. So yeah, no connection to the military at all. So it was quite a normal childhood.
Oh, amazing. So then going and moving forward then, so when you then went and met your husband, how did you go and meet then?
So he was based at RAF Lynham before it closed and then it's reopened as an army base. And I was living in Bath, which is down the road, as I was working as a graphic designer because I had left Cheltenham and moved to Bath to do my degree. I did my degree in graphic design and had a really good time. Started working as a children's book designer. So I did lots of Disney books and princess books and Pirates of the Caribbean and generally had an amazing career and I loved it. And it was just after the recession. So I just graduated just before the recession. So 2006, and generally just having the normal sort of, mid-20s life that you have. Met up with, we bumped into, it was a night out with a load of hockey girls who had met a load of RAF boys. And of course, like all classic romance stories, disaster ensued and half of us fell in love with each other, which I think at the time was very fun and really exciting, which it still is now. It's just very, very different now. So that was the height of the Afghanistan conflict. So that was 2009. So that's when I first met my boyfriend, who's now my husband. And yeah, we've been married since 2014.
So what was it like then going and dating? Because I'm assuming he was deployed on and off then?
Oh, all the time. So the Air Force is a little bit different, I think, probably to the Navy and the Army, especially if you're air crew. So he was flying out of Lynham. They were still doing the repatriations into RAF Lynham at that point, going through Witten Bassett. And Afghanistan was a really busy time for the Air Force. So in fact, we met the start of October, and I think by the end of October, he was already out there. So we had a very quick sort of first few weeks of our relationship before he disappeared. But it was a busy time. He was out for quite a few years, actually. So he didn't just go out for 6 months. He would do 2 months in Afghanistan and then maybe a couple of weeks back, and then he'd go out again for 6 weeks. And that was back and forward. Probably for about 3 or 4 years. It was a busy time. So constant operations, constant deployments, and constant worry. It was a really tough time, actually.
So what was it like then? Obviously, you've just got to explain some of the challenges. What was the biggest challenge then, do you think, that obviously you overcame so early on in your relationship?
Yeah, it was a bit of a baptism of fire. I'm not going to lie. A massive war when you first started dating somebody is a bit intense. I think it was, well, to start with, it was communications, because it was back in the days when we had blueies, which I miss. I love blueies. They're so romantic. And blueies, if you don't know, are the BFPO airmail that you used to send out for free. You used to go to the post office and pick up your blueies and then write these letters, which would take about 3 weeks to get to where they needed to go, and then 3 weeks to get your reply. So there's a lot of waiting around. But we also managed to have 30-minute phone calls. It was the day of the phone card, where you could get a phone call for 30 minutes. And if you missed that phone call, then that was it for the week, and you were always devastated because you never knew when it was going to come in, and it was always at the most crazy times. So communication was really, really tough. And especially when you'd only just met and you only just started dating. And of course, the worry, because Afghanistan was so much in the headlines at the time, and the news was constantly pumping out all of this information. And there were so many deaths, and there were so many repatriations. And he was living at Lynham at the time, and being part of that, it was quite it was a really tough time. And something that I look back on now and genuinely wonder how we all got through it, and I've had this conversation with a lot of military wives, particularly about that time, and it was intense. There was a lot happening, and a lot of worry. So I think that was the hardest part, was the worry and knowing what was happening, the lack of communications. If there was an incident or an accident, then all the communications got shut down. So you didn't know who it was or what was happening. And then, of course, there was the day that Bastion got attacked when Prince Harry was there, which is where my husband was based at the time, and seeing all these aircraft on fire on the news, but not knowing if it was him or his friends. That was, it was quite an intense time, and it was a little bit much, actually.
Yeah. What were your coping mechanisms to try and to help yourself deal with that period?
So I surrounded myself with friends, actually. That was my key to it, because we weren't married at that point, so I hadn't left Bath. I was still living there. And I surrounded myself with my amazing friends, and I'm not going to lie, we spent a lot of time in the pub. There was a lot of summers. There was the Olympic summer, and then the royal wedding summer. Lots of bank holidays. Spent a lot of time in the pub. And they were just wonderful, because obviously they knew it was happening because it was in the media. But they were there, and they had my back and looked after me and kept me busy. But also we had things like, if something had happened and, something terrible happened to my boyfriend, they were the ones who were going to sort everybody out and pick me up and take me to where I needed to go. And we had sort of a system in place, and it was really good. But looking back on it now, 10 years later, and thinking, oh my goodness, I was a 25-year-old woman planning my boyfriend's, funeral. We were talking about funerals at the time in the pub on a Friday night. That's not normal. But unfortunately, that's the reality of when you partner with somebody in the military. The reality is that death or injury is always there and at the forefront. So that was it. That was my coping mechanism. Lots of talking and lots of trips to the pub. I'm sure there are better ways to do that. And I know that we can't do that now. So we must find better ways to cope with deployments in the time of COVID.
So going and then moving forward, you then got married. These are always fun questions. How did he propose to you?
So again, to do with Afghanistan, like most of our start of our relationship was to do with Afghanistan. So by this point, RAF Lynham were closed, and the Hercules had moved to RAF Brize Norton, and we had both moved to just down the road from there. We weren't married, so we went on the married patch, and it was the 17th of February. And the reason I know that is because he was delayed coming back from Afghanistan. And I think he had originally planned to propose on Valentine's Day,
Nice.
But he was late. So he said to Blenheim Palace, where he booked a table because we lived around the corner. It's like, look, I'm stuck in Afghanistan. I've been the war hero. I think he bigs it up a little bit for such a long time. Any chance that you can sort me out a table for this weekend, because I've made a mess of Valentine's Day? And they were all over it and they loved it. And they were really supportive and got him a table and gave him a complimentary bottle of champagne, which was amazing. But unfortunately, he hadn't told me this, so I chose to drive.
Oh, no.
So we went on this very romantic trip to Blenheim Palace, and we had this very romantic lunch, and he just got back from Afghanistan, which is basically a dry country, so he hadn't drank for about 6 weeks. And I think he'll argue with me now, but I think he was pretty drunk when he decided to finally get down on one knee. But I think it helps. Sometimes you just have to, lubricate these things. So we were engaged. That was, I think, the year before, and then married the year after. And I think we had about 2 weeks with him at home before he disappeared off again. But at least I had a wedding to plan this time, so it did fill the gap.
Oh, fantastic! So you must have just done your wedding anniversary then. I'm just thinking at the date.
No, it's August. Yeah, we did. We dragged a little bit more.
Oh, fantastic! That's brilliant. Then that's absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
So you are now married, and we've heard from our guests in the past about what it's like being a military spouse. So what's your side of what was it like for you being a military spouse?
I think I gave it there was a lot of hope. I hoped that once I was married, I'd be in the gang and it would be different, and it would be like a moment where I was a bit more recognised. But actually the reality was that so we had left Bath just before we got married, and I'd started my own business because I had to leave my career. Well, we had a chat about it, and we decided that it would probably work better if my career was flexible because the commute for him was too far. So I started my own design business that I took with me that was at Bryce Norton. So grew my own business, spent a lot of time by myself, but networking, trying to grow that. Then we got married and I was like, right, this is it. I'm in the gang. This is going to be different. And actually, the reality was that I was still really quite lonely and he was still deployed a lot. And even though the other sorts of wives and the spouses on base did their best to sort of incorporate everybody, it's a really lonely time. So I found myself sat at home an awful lot, working on my business, but not really seeing anybody. So it was a sad, lonely time because all my friends were back in Bath, moving on with their lives and moving on with their jobs and doing their things. And it seemed like my partner was constantly deployed, constantly away. And it was just a bit of a sad, lonely, isolated time.
How did you cope with that? That sounds really, really difficult.
I don't think I really did. I look back now, because Afghanistan was still happening, because it was a long one. And you don't have a choice. You just have to get your head down and get on with it. But looking back, I don't think I really coped at all. I think I just stuck my head in the sand. And it was a really dark time and a really lonely time. And I think everybody's getting a bit of a taste of it now that we've been in lockdown. Yeah. To know what life is like without company, without people. And that's what it reminds me of. It's kind of like the longest detachment ever, lockdown. Yeah. But slowly I worked out that my business was really important and it was the thing I loved doing. And it was kind of the thing that gave me, it was exciting and it gave me something to do. And it meant that I was more than just a housewife waiting for my husband, which I'm sure that no military wife has ever been, but that's what it felt like. And I also found other people that were running their business that were around me that were really cool and doing really, really exciting stuff. And I thought, this is it. These are my people. These are the people I want around me. I need to talk to them because they get military life and they get small business life. And I need to spend more time with them. And so that's what we did.
So then this feels like the build-up to the Independent Spouse podcast. How did this come about from this experience?
I think, like in all things in business, and actually probably military life, if you think about it, it's not a straight line. It has been the wiggliest of lines ever. It started off with so I did a lot of business networking with the civilian community. Which was fab, but as soon as we got posted, they would forget me. So we had moved by this point again, because my husband likes to get posted, unfortunately, and I seem to be following him. So this is our second posting we'd moved to, and my networking group had forgotten me, and I was feeling a bit miffed and then lonely again. And it's another miserable winter with your husband deployed. And I thought, right, I'm going to start a networking group. So it was called Millipreneurs. And it was just for girls, because I thought that more military spouses were girls. I was very wrong. And we met on base every month, and we were going to do networking, and it was going to be amazing. But actually, the reality was that we were just very lonely, and we wanted to drink wine. So, like, oh, it's a bit of a theme in this recording. But like all good ideas, things generally turn into drinking wine. So eventually, it fizzled out. And then I tried again on my next posting and joined up with some other spouses, and we had a group. But of course, people are busy and they have children and families, and it doesn't really work. And then I'd been listening to loads of podcasts, and I love podcasts. It's the best thing when you're walking the dog, or if you've got 10 minutes, love a podcast. But I realised that I got all these amazing business pals that were doing amazing things, and nobody knew. And I thought, gosh, if I could rewind back to that first posting when we were at Lynham and then Bryce Norton, and known that there were people doing these amazing things, it would have got me out of that slump. And I would have kind of felt a bit better about this military life, and realised that I could do my own things and, you know, make my own goals and achieve what I want to achieve at the same time as my husband is doing his thing. So after a little bit of research and a very rickety sort of recording session, my first ever podcast episode was recorded. It was with the lovely Heleth from Recruit for Spouses, who took a punt on me, and I will be forever grateful, because it was tough going for her. And if you listen to the recording now, it's a little bit rough around the edges, but it's brilliant content, and it's just, yeah, it was just a very good start to a podcast. And that first series, I think it went out 2018. I think I only did 6 episodes. Took me about 7 hours for each episode to edit, because I was that bad. And now 2-3 years down the line, I think there's 46 episodes. Series 5 is hopefully coming out in the spring, summer this year, and it's just taken off massively.
So you then went and released your first episode then, and you then just decided to just, you know, evolve from it. What kind of made you keep going with it, you know? Because once I think it's very hard to, once you have an idea and then when you do it, to not get bored of it, and then to try and keep it going.
I think I just love talking to people, and I love being around people, which is why military life has always been a bit tough for me. And I just loved sitting down and spending a good hour like we're doing now, meeting other people, getting to know them, talking to them, and being inspired by them. But then hearing the feedback is brilliant, and it is really making a difference. And I think sometimes some things are just too important not to do. Yeah. And I think this is really important. And I think my dad calls me, I mean, he'll probably say I'm a little bit bloody minded, which is why I've stuck with it. That's probably the reality of it. But I just think that the people in this community are just so fascinating and so interesting. And we're married to people that are fascinating and interesting, but we've heard about them. We know they're ace. That's all covered. They get medals. They're good. But I think if we could talk to the partners and hear their stories, that is so much. It's just really cool and really interesting. And I think it's important stories that aren't being told. And I've spoken to some truly inspirational people. There's lovely Jodie, who swam the Channel with stage 4 cancer. Took her, I think it was 17 hours or something crazy. And yet I know she's just a beast. She's wonderful. She's a really good friend.
Wow.
And just phenomenal. But to be able to share her story with everybody, which it may not have got out there, I think is really important. Yeah. And then I spoke to Emma Egging, who started the John Egging Trust, whose husband was a Red Arrows pilot who sadly crashed and died. And to be able to give her a space to share the story that she wants to share, rather than the media, sort of idea of her story, I think is really important for her. But also so that wives and partners and husbands know what it's like to experience that kind of thing. So 100%. Because it is our worst fear, but to know that other people have done that or lived through that, and there is a positive side to it. Yeah. It's really, and that's what it is. That's why I keep going, and that's why I keep doing it, because I'm fascinated by these people, and I think everybody should have a little listen to it.
I completely agree. And obviously, The Independent Spouse was doing really, really well because it's a really good podcast. And then it then rolled into and evolved into. You then took it to another step, and you founded Milspo Network. And do you just tell us about, first of all, what does Milspo stand for, just so our listeners can hear?
Yeah, so Milspo stands for Military Spouses, Partners and Other Halves. But actually it's all encompassing. So we have veterans, we have veterans partners, and we also have widows, and generally anybody that's been affected by military life that has started their own business.
Oh, brilliant. So how did this idea come about? How did you decide to then go and change from the podcast to then doing this next chapter?
So I was paying for Zoom. So I record my podcast on Zoom, and I was paying for it. And I thought I'd been to the Americans are really good with their online networking. And this was May 2019 or maybe 18. I think it was 19. And I'd been to this online party where they'd used breakout rooms, and I thought this is a really good, cool way of doing online networking with a load of people that I've met that are scattered across the world and the UK, without, that are all military partners who, like me, have got a networking group that's a local one, but as soon as we move, they're all going to forget us. And I thought we could create networking online, and we could meet each other every month and then not have to worry where we live. And then we could actually meet in real life one day when we inevitably get posted to the same place. So I had this idea, and roped in my poor husband and my poor sister one night to try and work out if we could do virtual networking, which is now called, on Zoom. So my husband had a laptop and a phone, and I had my phone and my computer. My poor sister in Bristol was hooked up to all these different computers that she had. And we tried to do breakout rooms with the three of us to see if it would work. And I swear the ringing is still ringing in my ears from the feedback. It was pretty horrendous, but it worked. And I did this little test on virtual networking one night, and we had people from Cyprus and Germany joined us. There was only 12 of us, and we did this online networking session, and we all shared our businesses, and we had a good chat. And it was brilliant because for some of us, it was like the first humans we talked to all day. And it was a success, and we loved it. And we were able to talk about business, which is very rare in this military world when we've got exciting partners. And I thought, gosh, I quite enjoyed that. Maybe we should do this more often. So inevitably, like all things, a Facebook group was started, and to try and get people to come along to this networking. And this was before COVID and lockdown made video less scary. So it was a little bit challenging to get people to actually talk on video, but stuck with it because, like I said, I'm a little bit bloody minded. And every month since that May, I now do an online virtual networking, which has come into its own during lockdown, but will continue way after, because I genuinely think it's the best way to run a business and to connect with people in business. So COVID has helped. It has been a positive that has come out of this.
Yeah.
But I just, love it, really enjoy it. And now it's this big Milspo network, which has got, like you said, over 900 people.
Which is fantastic.
And we do events every week, and we have made real friendships in real life. And hopefully once it's all over, we'll meet people and actually have real life get-togethers, and it's going to be brilliant.
So, you must have spoke to hundreds. I know you've spoken to hundreds of military spouses. What do you think is one of the biggest challenges that military spouses are facing? Obviously, COVID right now is one of them. But what are the others that you think our military spouses are facing at the moment?
So I think it's always isolation. I think that's the main thing. And I think, obviously, like you said, COVID is here, and there's a lot of us in this country obviously locked down, but abroad that can't come home. And yet our partners are still going to work every day because they are frontline and they are operational, so they're still getting deployed for months. There's somebody who's getting deployed for a year that I know. While a global pandemic is happening. So the usual pressures of military life that we contend with every day, that we contend quite well with and we do our best, have sort of been compounded by COVID life. So we've got people that have got children that can't get a break, and then there's people like me with no children who are just so lonely. And yeah, it's you could be isolated with family around, you could be surrounded by people and still isolated and all by yourself. And I think that's the reality, is that we are still sort of slightly forgotten. We're still sort of, you know, we're always been called resilient. Military wives are so resilient. It's like, yes, but also I'm knackered and I need some help and I'm really lonely. And yes, I'm resilient, but we don't need to use that as an excuse to just keep carrying on.
Yeah.
You know, it needs to be sort of acknowledged that we're doing really well, but it's still very, very lonely.
Yeah.
Which is why, so we do weekly meetups online.
Yes.
In the Milspo group, purely to talk nonsense to each other, because there isn't anybody else to talk to. And you know, even though it's meant to be a business networking group, we very rarely talk about business. We just talk about the state of the world, or our magnolia walls, or our very crazy curtain choices, because sometimes you just need people to talk to.
Yeah.
And that's the real heart of it. It's not really about doing business. It's not making money or being Alan Sugar. It's meeting people that are like you, that understand it and get it and want to support each other. So yeah, I think it hasn't changed since Afghanistan and Iraq. I think we're still lonely and having to cope with deployments. But COVID has compounded it. We're just very lonely and isolated.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone, can agree with what you're going and saying there. What do you think? Obviously, you're stepping up and doing your part at the moment with what you're doing, is creating a networking, a networking system. What else do you think needs to be done from your point of view to help military spouses at the moment?
I think it's really little things that are so easily done. Because I say this a lot when I talk to the partners online. I'm like, but what do you want? Because now we've got this platform, we can ask for what we want. And it's so varied, because somebody might want help with childcare, or, you know, they might need help with, anything. But it's never, because we're not the same person, and because we're all so different. Because basically we married somebody in the military, so we're not going to have everything in common with each other. But I think it's just such a small thing. I think it's acknowledgement that it's been a really tough time. And maybe if the MOD or senior military leaders would just say, we know it's really tough and we're here for you and we have your back, and let us know how we can help you. Just because I think in the military world, we kind of, as dependents, which is one of my least favourite words, but embracing it, I think we just sort of, a lot of stuff is taken away from us. And yes, it is our choice to marry who we pick, but sometimes love does get in the way. But we don't get to choose where we live, really, and we don't really choose where our children go to school, or what we really do. And some of us choose to live separately from our partners so they can go to work. So we're kind of out of it. It's just little things like not being able to pick up your own rail card, or you know, if you're an officer's wife or partner, being allowed to go in the mess without being sort of supervised. It's all these little things are taken away from us. So to just acknowledge that we exist and we're here, and to go, what do you want? We're proud of you. You know, we know you're here. I think would make such a world of difference.
Completely agree with you. I completely agree with you there. From looking around, it looks like a lot of military spouses create a very creative, and they create their own businesses. Do you think that is down to the fact that, you know, you can be moved? You can be. I think there was a statistic about military spouses in employment, the lack of knowledge that, you know, employers don't fully understand it.
Yeah, so I never even wanted to start my own business. Actually, I was quite happy working in house and working in publishing, but kind of gave up after 2 or 3 attempts of getting a job where people went, why have you moved house every 10 minutes? Or they would work out that my partner was in the military and they had experience, maybe their dad was in the Navy or something, and they'd go, no, you're moving, we don't want to employ you, which is changing and it is getting better, and there is lots of work happening around that. But I think it's just because partly because some of us move house a lot and it works and it fits around childcare. But also I think it's because military serving personnel seem to attract people that are similar to them, who are, go-getters and can be passionate and really innovative. And I think self-employment and that kind of person goes so well together. Yeah. So even though a lot of us would just love I say a real job, but a salary and a pension and health care, that kind of stuff that you get when you have a job with a boss, and company and Christmas parties, and I just feel like I'm just slowly getting more and more jealous, but it just doesn't really fit with military life. And so I have chosen self-employment, and a lot of people have. Other people are making employment work. It's just that the understanding around employment is still not quite there yet. So that's a big part of Milspo, is trying to change how people view military partners. Yeah. Because yes, I do an awful lot of crying and wait for my husband, but also I'm pretty cool and I can run a business and do amazing things as well. It's just a balance, and I think more people need to see that. Yeah, definitely. Are you doing anything? Sorry, you went and said your Milspo is trying to go and recognise that. Is there any sort of campaigns that you're running at the moment, or? So we have the Milspo movement, which is it's all about showcasing, and it's all about encouraging people to grab the label of military wife, husband, partner, whichever one you associate with, and not being ashamed of it and claiming it and owning it. So that when you go into those job interviews and you inevitably hide it, if it comes up and if people find out about it, you go, yes, but I'm amazing because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So that the conversation changes around it, so that people relate military spouse and partners with these amazing people, so that the people that follow, it's an easier journey for them and it's less hard work. And also just basic things like talking to your partner if they're serving, especially if they're decision makers in the MOD, and saying to them, look at this group of amazing military partners, look at what they can do with so little support and so little resources, and they're still rocking it. Yeah. So, let's big them up and let's support them in the same way that veterans are so very well looked after, and quite rightly. You do the same for military partners, and oh my goodness, we would take over the world. I've always said, if you want something done, ask a military partner to do it and you'll get it done. So brilliant. Yeah. Well, that there leads on to my next question perfectly, and that is, what is your favourite thing or aspect about being a military spouse? I should probably say it's my husband. Obviously without saying, it's my husband. Oh, you know what? I'll rephrase it. Apart from your husband. Apart from my husband, because he will listen to this and tell me off for that. So I think it's the people I found, and yes, it's taken me a while to find them. And like I said before, military partners aren't all the same, so we're never going to find people that are exactly like us. But scratching the surface and working my way through all these different postings and finding my people has just been life-changing for me. And there was a time when I was going to give up because it was too tough and I didn't particularly like the people I was surrounded with. But now that I've got the Milspo group and business owners that are like me, doing amazing things that are so inspiring, that's my favourite part. I've got like a group of pals that are really cool, but also understand when I complain about my curtains or another deployment or those boots that never get picked up. That's what it is. It's the partners that really inspire me. That's the best part. Oh, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. That's a great answer. I just wanted to go, how was, for any people who are listening who aren't, who are civvies, how would you go and describe the difference between being a military spouse to a normal spouse? Well, you know what? I don't think there is, because I'm very much a civilian still. I'm not by any means serving. And in fact, I mean, I'd love a medal, but I mean, I'm not getting shot at the end of the day. I'm not on the front line, and I'm not doing these crazy things my husband seems to do. But I am picking up the pieces this side, and I'm supporting him an awful lot. And I don't think there's a difference between me and my civilian friends. It's just that I think there's been a little bit more pressure on me. I was going to use that cheesy, phrase where you put pressure on coal and it turns to a diamond, but
nice.
I can't say that because that is a bit naff. But I think that's the difference. I think I've just been toughened up because I haven't had a choice. I've chosen this life, and this life has thrown me around a little bit because I think we've moved like 5 times in 6 years, and that is intense on new friendships. So that's quite goodly. And I think
it's a lot of times. That is a lot of times.
Postcodes. Don't ask me about postcodes. No, I don't think there is a difference. I think we've just toughened up a little bit, and I think we really value when things are going well because we've known the reality and we've known how tough it can be.
Yeah.
So that when things are going well, I think we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Yeah, that would be what I think is the difference.
Oh, brilliant. I just say you've moved around so much. Well, without being biased, where was your favourite place? I've said that, and it's going to be really hard for you to answer because of it. But where was your favourite place? And it was just because you liked it.
I think. Oh, I wish. We've had a few rubbish. I'm not going to lie, it's been a few, but we've only been there a year, so it's very difficult. So we based at High Wycombe for at least 11 months. But there's a married patch that I probably shouldn't tell everybody about because I will want to live there. But it's in Medmenham, which is halfway between Marlow and Henley. And it's on the river. And it's an old, it was where they discovered the U2 bombing sites, where they used to launch the U2s. And it was an old intelligence base. Now it's an amazing posh hotel that nobody can afford to stay at. But the married quarters are still there. So they still have the houses there. And it just happens to be down the road from Marlow and Henley, which, I mean, in the real world, you'd have to be a multi-millionaire to get to live anywhere near there. So that's pretty cool that I managed to live there. That's the good thing about, I think, military life is, you can end up in crappy places sometimes and the middle of nowhere. But sometimes you get a really cool posting.
Yeah.
And it's basically like, okay, I've got a year. I'm going to do all of the sites. Yeah. Oh, and then we moved somewhere else. So at the moment, we're in central London.
Brilliant. That's fun.
Which would be if it wasn't a pandemic. But I have faith that at some point we'll be free. And then I'm just going to spend the year doing all the London things. And I think that's the secret to it. You just have to find the positives. And it sucks. And those first couple of months into a posting, it's like, oh my goodness, not again. I don't know anybody. Where is the supermarket? I've got to get a doctor's and a dentist. This is rubbish. But if you embrace it and go for it, then it's a lot less painful than whether you just think this sucks and then you spend 2-3 years feeling sorry for yourself.
Well, you've kind of answered my next question there, but it was what would you go and tell someone who's brand new to being a military spouse? What would you go and tell them as for advice?
I would say before that very first posting, if you don't have to move, try and hold on to, it's terrible, my husband's going to hate this, but try and cling on to the life that you had before just a little bit longer, because you will miss it terribly. And it's so important to have those foundations, to have your home and to have your friends there. And I would say once you do get posted, and if you choose to move with your partner, nurture those friendships, nurture those civilian friends, because they're the ones that know you from before things get too tough and before things change. But also they're away from this life, and even though this life is amazing, it's quite like all encompassing, and you're living in it, and you're surrounded by people. You need that balance, and you need those original friends. And I've got some truly awesome friends who will stick by me no matter what, but I really have to look after that friendship and nourish it. But equally, you can find some amazing friends in this military community, and don't think just because you met them once and they're not quite your cup of tea that you won't get them. just scratch the surface a little and get to know them, because in the same way you've got civilian friends for life, you can find military friends for life who will look after you as soon as you retire, and will genuinely be the best friends. No matter where you get posted, they'll always get it and always know it. So that would be, I just think embrace every moment, and it's going to suck as well, but embrace every moment, make some friends and look after your old ones.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. Now, Jess, we all now want to know a little bit more about yourself.
Oh.
So, I want to know what your favourite family holiday was.
Oh. So, family holidays. Oh, unfortunately. So, we did not have much money when we were growing up. So, the 90s. Like I said, I think I've got a bit of nostalgia for the 90s. So, we used to go on magical mystery tours where we would do day trips.
Oh, brilliant.
I could never afford to stay anywhere. It was really sad. But we would go and jump in the car and drive to the Forest of Dean and have a day out in the Forest of Dean and drive back. And it was because it was a magical mystery tour. We never knew where we were going. But I have really, really fun memories thinking about it, is caravan holidays.
Yes.
Which were just brilliant. We used to go and there was like a local, it's not a nightclub because it was like the family's club.
Yes.
And they used to do competitions and dancing and loved it. But you know what? I don't think it was, we could have gone to the Maldives and had the best time ever. I think it's just spending time with your family that actually matters.
Oh.
But yeah, bit of caravanning in the 90s.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. All right. Best holiday now of the last 10 years.
Oh, there's been so many.
Oh, okay. But you've got to pick one. And I know it could annoy some people, but you've got to pick one. If you've gone on a friend's holiday, you might have to cut them out.
There's so many. This is the problem. When you marry somebody in the military, we do a lot of traveling. They love traveling. Yeah. So it's really tough. I think. So we went to Peru. My husband, I keep mentioning.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was his idea. It was an adventure holiday. I say adventure loosely, as in he made me do walking and stuff. And I'm very clumsy, and I tend to almost die on most of my holidays. So if there's a ladder to fall off or a So we went to Peru. We went to Machu Picchu, which was life-changingly wonderful.
Yeah.
But I did get altitude sickness, and it was a bit intense.
Oh, that sounds really, really horrible. I know, but but at the same time, Peru, that is...
it was worth the sickness. It was just, yes.
I
Wonderful.
feel I need to ask you a follow-up. What's the second best then? Because I'm now really intrigued, because you've said that, and the bar's been set so high with Peru that I now need to know
the second best.
The second best now, because I'm now just intrigued.
So Sri Lanka. So we've done a lot of we've done a lot of big holidays. I know, because we're very aware of it's the military thing. It's life could change so drastically, and it could be terrible. So we do go hard when we go on holiday.
Amazing.
So I've gone from going to caravan holidays to traveling the world. But Sri Lanka is the most amazing country in the world if you can go, because it's like, so we went to India, which is brilliant, but it's like India, but with it's like the whole of India in a small island. So you can do tea picking, or you can see leopards on a safari, or you can be on a beach. It's quite a big island, but it's for all those different experiences. Sri Lanka is amazing.
Oh my God, you've had an absolutely incredible holidays.
Yeah.
And I think you went and mentioned how important are those holidays for you when your husband goes and comes back, obviously?
They're the most important part. That's why we do it. They're the most important part of our relationship, because I just don't see that man. Yeah. He works so hard, and fair play to him, but equally I do as well. And we're in it and we're loving it. But by the time he gets home and it's, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, or a weekend's flown by, there just isn't the chance to talk to each other, and having time away to get to know each other again, and for him to decompress, and for me to just to get to know him again is really crucial to our relationship, because he has spent so much time away from me, And without that time to have that big chunk of time together, it's just not gonna work. And the reality is, at some point, I will say to him, "You need to pick me or the military," and he will be miserable whichever side he picks. Really, yeah, I know. Despite my best thoughts, he would be sad if he couldn't fly. But so they're so important, and I think this year, being in lockdown and not being able to go away together, but still having lockdown together, so still having that chance to talk, but not having that quality time, has really been, it's really been evident.
Yeah. Oh wow. Well, I mean, as a military charity that provides respite breaks, we know all well that how important those holidays are for people. And I mean, this has been fantastic, and we've got to my final question. This has been I'm really sad because I'm really enjoying this. So my final question is, what does family mean to you?
Oh, I think family is so important, and I think in my military, so I would say my military family is bigger. It's not just me and my husband. It's our friends, because when you move away from your family, you have friends around you that become your family. And it's your support system when you're on your own, and they're your people to talk to. And yes, it is just me and my husband in our family, but our wider family is what really helps both of us get through military life. And it's crucial to it. And I will say that spending quality time with people, as we now all know, because we're not doing it, makes the world a difference in this military life.
Oh yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And to any military spouses who are listening, who want to go and get in contact and be a part of your network, how would they go about doing that?
So I think the first place to head is the website. That's milspo.co.uk, MILSPO. And from there you can get pointed to the Facebook group, or if you're looking for the Independent Spouse podcast series, you can do it that way, or just search for it on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And Jess, what have you got going in the future? What exciting projects are you up to next?
Well, we're going to recover from lockdown.
Of course.
And once we get out of that, hopefully real life meetups, because I've met so many people. I haven't met them. I have seen them on the internet and got to know them, and they're my friends. And we're going to meet them in real life, which I can't wait, because these people have got me through lockdown, and we've got through each other through deployments and all this craziness, and it's going to be so good to see them. So there's going to be a lot of real life Milspo events, lots of networking, lots of actually meeting people, and leaving the children with our serving partners so we can go off and do stuff together and have lots of fun. That is the plan.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And what kind of amazing holidays do you have planned next? I'm assuming there's some sort of Brazil, Argentina. Is Hawaii on the cards?
He keeps threatening. Honestly, my husband keeps threatening to book holidays. And as wonderful it is, I think we just need to get through this. There was talk of the Maldives, because we've been and it was just so wonderful. But we have spent a lot of lockdown talking about holidays. So I think we're just filling the gaps, places that we haven't been before. I don't know. I mean, I'd just like to lie down on the beach. But I think he's probably got something planned, like trekking through some sort of rainforest or something. I don't know.
Well, all I can say is look forward to your holiday on Mount Everest, because I feel like that's where you're going to end up.
I think I will.
Oh my God, Jess, it's been absolutely fantastic. I've loved every minute of this. This has been so great talking to you. It's been so fun.
Well, thank you for having me. I just want to say before I go that I love Give Us Time, and I think it's so important. I think if you're listening to this and you're not in the military community, or you want to support the military community, this is such a good way to do it, because it's not just about veterans or injured people. It's about the whole community, and especially the people that are serving, who are working really hard. Just having a little holiday makes such a difference, and it is so appreciated. And I know loads of spouses love Give Us Time. So that's my little appeal to get some holidays for you, because it's just so important for us.
Jess, thank you so much. It was absolutely lovely. This has been absolutely brilliant. And I want to say thank you to everyone for listening to episode 12 of the Give Us Time podcast. Again, a massive thank you to Jess today. Thank you so much. And make sure, and everyone who's going and listening, I am going to go and include in the description how to get in contact with Jess and Milspo and the Independent Spouse. So if you are listening, you do want to get in contact, you can do that. Head over to the description. Make sure to like and follow Give Us Time on all your social media so you don't miss out on future podcasts and future events. And guys, thank you very much for listening. So have a lovely day and thank you.